Hey, hi everybody. It is Gretchen here with Story and Art. Yes, it's a premiere night. I am not able to be live here right now, but I didn't want you to miss out on Story and Art. I tried to convince Bob to be my guest reader. It didn't go over real well. I'm not quite sure why. The Bob Squatch is still being elusive. But here I am with a recorded premiere for you. Hopefully, he will be in the chat saying things, but I was not able to be home tonight to do this story so I'm recording it for you tonight. And I think you'll love it, though. This is a really cool story tonight, and it spoke to me. I was surprised it was one of these things I did not know about. Another children's book that informs you about things you don't know about, and and think, wow, I've never heard of that. And this really struck me because it's about soccer, and it's a true story about some kids in soccer, and I was a soccer mom through and through. Both girls played soccer, but the older one stopped sooner. She was a competitive swimmer and crew rower and total athlete. With her, she was swimming and some track and then rowing, but mainly swimming and then rowing. But my younger daughter, she swam, but she was a runner through and through, and soccer was how it started. And she had a soccer ball shortly after she could walk, and we went to soccer games all the time, soccer matches every place all the time. She ended up not going to college for soccer. She went for track instead at the University of Oregon, but she did play soccer in Italy when she was 16, invited to go on a team of select players and had a grand time. But soccer games were what we were all about, and we watched soccer, Sounders ticket holders for years. And, this story really just kind of struck me. It is called The Floating Field, and it's by Scott Riley. And Scott, let me show you a little bit about him. He spent a lot of his childhood, he said, in the woods with his family's home in Connecticut and brothers and sisters, and just doing the general outdoor wild kid stuff. He had boyhood dreams of traveling, became real as an exchange student in Tunisia and then later in France. And he found so much to discover. After finishing college and getting married and starting his teaching career, he somehow convinced his wife to explore a bit of the world with him. That was 1996. Since then, they've lived alongside volcanoes in Indonesia, in villages in the Czech Republic, and amid skyscrapers in Singapore. He said, today the thrill of exploring a place and its people still draws me out to far destinations, and now I write about them. His debut picture book, which is what I'm going to read, The Floating Field, is about one such place. And it is illustrated by Feng Yang Kwong and Hong Kim Lin. I apologize if I got those pronunciations wrong. 99% sure that I got them wrong. But, yeah, I gave it a whirl. These two are book creators who live and work together in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. And in 2015, their unpublished children's book, The First Journey, won the Scholastic Picture Book Award. And they had written and illustrated the manuscript in just about 2 weeks, and to meet the competition deadline. And then last year, it was published by Scholastic Singapore. So it's quite cool that they are the illustrators for this book. And the colors in it are wonderful. The story is great. And I have my cheat sheet in front of me with names. So when I check them out, it's because I'm trying to get at least some names right. We'll see. So sit back, relax, and here we go with the floating field. How a group of Thai boys built their own soccer field. And if you were watching closely in my opening video, I gave clues about this, like I always do, and there were even pictures of this place. The floating field. What's most important is that anything is possible, and as a community or team, you can overcome incredibly impossible odds. Prasit Hemin, founding member of the Panyi Football Club. Koh Phangan, Thailand, 1986. Prasit Hemin lived in a village on stilts. Prasit woke early each morning before school to help his father, and together they loaded the longboat with nets while his mother brewed coffee and sliced jackfruit in the kitchen. Like many villagers, Prasit's father spent his day fishing for groupers and prawns. He spent his nights tying nets and dreaming of the next day's catch. But Prasit dreamed of other things other than fish. And last night, the moon had been full. Prasit's father revved the boat's motor and headed out to sea. Prasit waved, then raced along and the raised walkways to Uncle's coffee shop. The others were already there. Uncle welcomed Prasit and his friends with plates of fried dough. Between sugary bites, the boys made important decisions. Who will carry the poles? Who's on which team? Who gets to kick off first? Above them, the full moon had set, and the sun was rising. Below them, the tides were already shifting. The moment school ended, the boys rushed to the pier. The tide was finally out and the sandbar glistened in the distance. The boys jumped into a boat and paddled furiously. Prasit and his friends planted the poles and got into position. With the ball in play, they dug in their toes and chased it across hard-packed ripples of sand. They weaved in between other players to get open, and when they got close, they took a shot. Goal! Back and forth the boys played as longboats returned from the sea full of fathers and fish. Waves soon crept in. The field narrowed. In minutes, the sandbar disappeared, and the game was over. Prasit and his friends drifted back to the pier, their laughter echoing off the cliff. With the sandbar gone, the boys could only dream about playing until the tides were low enough once more. But this month, the boys could still watch the game they loved. The World Cup was on, and teams from across the globe were playing in a far-off place called Mexico. At Uncle's coffee shop, the boys huddled around the television, the only one on the island. One day, after cheering for a team that came back from behind, someone suggested they form their own team. Everyone agreed. But a real soccer team needed a real field. Prasit looked out to where the sandbar lay hidden under the sea. He thought about their floating village, built from nothing but wooden planks and metal roofs. We could make our own field, he offered. The boys nodded in agreement. The next day after school, the boys scattered. Some searched for scraps of wood and empty barrels. Others swam out to abandoned fish farms to collect loose styrofoam. At the pier, they stacked materials and began building. Hammers flew, nails bent, boards split. Prasit and his friends had no plan. Somehow, that didn't matter. For days, the boys collected wood from broken boats and old docks. Prasit handed planks down to the boys in boats. Drifting in the tides, they fixed them to the floating barrels and makeshift buoys. Villagers heard what the boys were up to. Some walked by shaking their heads. One even shouted, "You're crazy! Look around you! You can't play soccer, not here!" But the boys didn't listen. Sea eagles wheeled overhead as they worked. Barrels and boards formed a platform. Some boys tethered it down below. Others painted the edges. A few began to frame knee-high goalposts. After weeks of work, their floating field was complete. With fishnet goals at each end, it teetered in the waves. No longer needing the moon to tug at the tides, Prasit and his friends headed straight to their field each day after school. Loose boards and bent nails forced fancy footwork. So did the field sidelines. When the ball bounced into the water, the kicker had to follow. With the ball in play, they bounced on their toes and chased it across rickety boards. The ball moving faster now, and the boys raced to keep up. They weaved in between other players to get open, and when they got close, they took a shot. Goal! Villagers walked by, but they no longer shook their heads. Instead, they stopped to watch. Some even cheered. When news of an upcoming tournament on the mainland reached the island, the boys decided to take a chance and sign up. On the morning of the tournament, Prasit and his friends walked to the pier in their mismatched jerseys and ragtag shorts. Before their longboat pushed off, a group of villagers ran toward them. Some carried baskets, others waved their hands. The boys hadn't been the only ones planning for the tournament. Reaching into the baskets, friends and family members pulled out new jerseys, matching shorts, and a pair of cleats for each player. The boys beamed, and so did the villagers. The Panyi Football Club was born. Later that morning on the mainland, the island boys got into position for their first game, this time on a field of grass. Across from them, opponents bounced on toes, ready to play. Prasit and his team stood flat-footed, nervous. But with the ball in play, the boys remembered what to do. They passed it down the field. They weaved in between other players to get open. And when they got close, they took a shot. Goal! By that afternoon, after winning several games, the Panyi Football Club had reached the semifinals. Once again, Prasit and his team lined up and waited for the referee's whistle. As the game began, the sky darkened. Within minutes, sheets of rain came pouring down, drenching uniforms, filling cleats, and flooding the field. The other team adjusted. Prasit's did not. At the half, the Panyi Football Club was down 2-0. The boys sat silently on the bench, raindrops pelting their heads. They needed to turn the game around. Prasit looked at his friends, his teammates. He thought about how they played on their floating field. Reaching down, he unlaced his shoes and peeled off his socks. His teammates followed. Nodding, barefoot they ran back into the field. Without waterlogged shoes, the boys moved quickly, just like they always had. Passing, give and goes, and racing to the goal. The Panyi Football Club scored twice. With only 2 minutes to play, both teams battled for the ball. Finally, a player from the other team trapped it, dribbled down the field, and struck it one more time, and the ball sailed into the net, just past the goalie's reach. The boys from Ko Panyi had lost. But that day, in that very moment, the Panyi Football Club came in third place. On the way back home, Prasit and his teammates yelled and cheered over the boat's rattling motor. As the boys drifted back to the pier, their laughter echoed off the cliff once again. But this time they didn't have to dream about when they'd play next. They had their floating football field where they could play the game they loved whenever they wanted. And here are some pictures up at the author's note. Soccer, known as football in many countries, is the world's most popular sport. In fact, more than 40% of the world's population consider themselves fan. That's almost half. These fans follow professional leagues each season, hoping that their teams come out on top. They also cheer on men's and women's national teams every 4 years in FIFA's World Cup tournaments. If you're a fan, you probably know all this, and you might also know that soccer is even more exciting to play than it is to watch. With the ball and a few friends, you can turn almost any space into a soccer field, and that's exactly what players have done across the globe. Sometimes in the most unexpected places, high atop a mountain in the Swiss Alps, in a village in the middle of the Amazon rainforest, or a building's rooftop in downtown Tokyo, Japan, and even on an ice shelf in the Arctic Circle. Ko Panyi is one of those unexpected places. The fishing village located on a tiny island off the coast of Thailand is where Prasit Hemin and his friends grew up loving soccer. Unfortunately for them, every inch of the village was taken for school, houses, shops, and a mosque. There certainly wasn't room for a soccer field. The boys had to wait to play soccer on a sandbar that appeared during certain phases of the moon cycle. Every day the moon's gravitational forces pulled on the ocean, causing high and low tides. Twice a month, once when the moon was full and once when it's new, its alignment with the sun creates extra strong spring tides. And that was when the boys rushed to the sandbar soccer field to play. In 2018, I first visited Ko Panyi and met Prasit. We sat at Uncle's coffee shop, eating jackfruit and fried dough, while he shared his story. He told me about his group of friends and how they love that soccer inspired them to build the floating field one board at a time. He shared the stories about his experience on the Panyi football field and how they eventually became regional champions in Thailand. And then he took me to the floating field. The original field is long gone, but the Thai government built the current floating field in honor of the boys and their team. I made a second visit to the island in 2019 to share my manuscript with Prasit, confirm details, and take additional photos, a few of which are included here. Today, Prasit and his family still live in Ko Panyi. He says he's too old to play soccer, but he still roots for his favorite soccer teams, including the Panyi Football Club that he helped found. He now leads in other ways by developing a recycling program and working to reduce the cost of electricity on the island, which is 6 times greater than on the mainland. But Prasit doesn't work alone. He knows that when people work together, absolutely anything is possible. And here's Prasit's perspective on it. Hundreds of years ago, our ancestors chose to settle on this island for its calm waters and protected bay. Our fishing village existed quietly, almost neglected for generations. Tourists first began visiting after the famous James Bond movie was made on a nearby island in 1974, introducing the world to Phang Nga Bay and our village. Football meant a lot to us kids on Compagnie in the 1980s, especially for those of us who did not want to pursue the traditional way of fishing and living quietly. Playing football allowed us to be active and dream big. We knew we were different growing up on an island, but if we played football, we thought we could connect with people on the mainland and gain their respect. We loved the game and we really wanted to show we could play well enough, even though we had no field. My friends and I played on a sandbar near the mangrove forest during the spring tides every month. In 1986, we built the floating field. We kept playing to have fun and to prove to the people outside that we could be good players. That year, we participated in the league tournament where we earned third place. Years later, the Pagny Football Club won the provincial, regional, and national championships. My son was a player on that team. Now all of Thailand knows about Koh Phangan and its players, and so do you. There's more about how to say things in it and how different kind of words in there. It's just such a cool book. So beautiful. Oops. Sorry about that. There, I hit the wrong thing. So I wanted to show you, look at this. And guys, look at that. That is the current one that the government helped replace. But there is the actual floating football field. I love it. That if you kick it into the water, you have to go in and get it yourself. That's amazing. That is truly amazing. I mean, that's some dedicated soccer players. And can you imagine being a soccer mom for that group? Oh my gosh. Or dad, soccer mom or soccer dad. You know, it's wonderful to see it, that it's done that. Oh my goodness. So anyway, you guys, that is the whole thing of the floating field, and that is the story that I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed it and were able to see some of the beauty of this and how they really tried to, when they needed to do something, when they wanted to. They loved soccer so much that they were playing on a sandbar and only at certain low tides once in a while. But boy, they figured out a way. Talk about ingenuity and just making it work. I love that. And I love how this kind of book is one of those things that can encourage us as well as the kids who read it. But when we hear things like this, stories like this, it's like, okay, yeah, we're able to accomplish a lot. And talk about a beautiful setting. Boy, wouldn't I love to go there? My daughter, who played soccer, has been to Thailand twice. And I know she went out toward those islands, but I don't think she knew about this. Hey, Bryn, if you're listening, did you know about this soccer field? I didn't. It's pretty darn cool. Anyway, you guys, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I will be back with you tomorrow night for a live. If you're catching this on the premiere, I will be back tomorrow night on Sunday with my normal live. But I do thank you for being here for this premiere. I didn't want you to miss out. This is 248 nights in a row that I have put out a story for you guys. So, whoa, we're getting there. All right, everybody, take care. Have a beautiful evening. And as always, keep looking for the beauty hidden in plain sight. It's all around you. It's not that hard to find. I suggest the first place you go look is in the mirror, because you'll find that beauty staring right back at you. Talk to you later.
All we need is a place to be and a few good friends for some company. If you'd like to stay, you don't have to leave. We'll leave the lights on and the door unlocked. If you drop on by, you don't have to knock. We're happy to share whatever we've got.